Good morning, happy Super Bowl Sunday, and welcome back to Bald Father Bets. So last game of the year, Super Bowl. It's a great day, but then it gets real sad right after that, right? And we got 7 months, no football. Like I told you guys, we will come at you with some content this offseason, especially with regards to futures. Look aheads into next year, any early lines that we think there's value on now that would change up until the game is played in the upcoming season. Just an example. This one wouldn't have mattered, but just an example. Going into the year in terms of look-ahead lines, Ohio State was a 10-point favorite against Michigan. Come kickoff, they were a 20-point favorite against Michigan. So there are times in which there's going to be significant line movement from what the early look-ahead line is up until when kickoff actually happens, especially on the ones that they're willing to give out that aren't week one lines. The ones that are going to be later in the season that you're going to get variance on a team as it goes on. It wouldn't have mattered because Michigan won the game anyway, but that's just an example of things that happen, and there's other examples of things like that. But that's not what we're talking about today, guys. We are talking about the Super Bowl. Eagles and Chiefs, Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans, dome, turf, fast surface. So we've already given our two preview. The first one kind of being the preview with regards to game film and how I see the game going. Second one, a little bit, more in depth on stuff like that, but then also talking about the line movement and props. And that one, I told you guys that I thought by kickoff, the Eagles would be favored. It got to the Eagles being favored for about 5 minutes. Actually, ESPN Bet went all the way to Eagles -1 for literally a total of about 5 minutes. And then it's finally, out of, the professional bettors that I like to track, significant money that I like to track, BetMGM in Vegas, which gets a lot of high six-figure plays. So far, the highest play on this game's been 800,000 on the Eagles money line. No one's laid $1 million yet. I think before kickoff, someone will lay $1 million. You'll see it. But finally, significant Chiefs money came in. So that's probably going to keep it right at about where it's at, which is 1. It may get down to Chiefs -0.5. There's a few places that may go to pick right before kickoff. If they are leveraged to the Eagles money-wise, there are still some books that are very much leveraged to the Eagles money-wise. Most of the $5 bets, $10 bets, $100 bets, etc., those are on the Chiefs. America is clearly rooting for the Eagles. They hate the Chiefs. Everyone hates the Chiefs for some reason. You guys know me. That's not really. I have my teams that I root for: Texas Longhorns, Detroit Lions. But I don't really hate anyone. If you're betting with your heart, you're probably going to get in trouble. So I think we got a great matchup. There are 5 key things that I've held back for my pick video, and this is the pick video. So I'm going to give those, and then we're gonna get into the pick. We already have one play down, which is Chiefs -1 for 5 units. So the question is today, do we come over the top on the Eagles? Do we keep it at Chiefs -1 for 5 units, or do we add a little bit more on the Chiefs? So let me get into the kind of the 5 things that I've held back for this one. For 2 of them are regressions to mean. I think you guys know I'm big on regression to mean. Things don't happen just continuously over and over and over and over and over and over again without usually some sort of regression to a mean. And then 3 of them are more stats, trends type deal. First one, the Chiefs being 12-0 this year in 1 possession games, and Mahomes being 17-0 in his last 17 games, in which are a 1 possession game. There, in theory, should be regression to the mean on that. You can't always win 1 possession games. In fact, you guys know a lot of times I fade teams that are like that. I fade teams that are, barely winning games, somehow finding a way to win, getting beat in the box score the way that the Chiefs have gotten beat in the box score, like they did against Houston, like they have almost all year long, but still somehow going 15-2. At some point you're due for a loss when you finally come up against someone that you just can't overcome it. The problem is this is the Super Bowl, so I look at it a little bit differently than I would a regular season game, where a team maybe like the Eagles did last year, where they started out 10-1, and then there was significant regression to the mean because they just really shouldn't have been winning any of those games, and then ultimately I think they lost like their last 6 or something like that. In theory, regression to the mean is in play here for the Chiefs when it comes to one possession games. I caution people on that. In theory, regression to the mean was in place for the Patriots during their dynasty in one possession games, and it never really happened over the course of almost like 20 years. Happened a little bit, but for the most part, they were still very dominant in one possession games. One possession games come down to a lot of things that are intangible, especially on the coaching side of things. And I'm going to get into that a little bit at the very end of this with regards to the intangibles. But I want to reiterate here how significant this coaching advantage is for across the board, actually. This isn't just offense. This is offense, defense, special teams. The coaching advantage is as significant as any player advantage that the Eagles have, if not more, actually. Eagles offensive line over Chiefs offensive line might be a little bit more than this coaching advantage, but this coaching advantage is massive. It's huge, especially defensive coordinator. But special teams is up there just as high. This is probably the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, best special teams coach in the NFL, both Hall of Famers, and then obviously Andy Reid, who's the best current active head coach in the NFL, over 300 wins, and one of the best current active offensive coordinators because he is the de facto offensive coordinator for the team. So while there is a regression to mean there for Chiefs in one possession games, I think it's a bit nullified with the coaching advantage that they have, and that's why that they're doing so well in these one possession games. The next one, Chiefs throw like a quarter of their passes at or behind the line of scrimmage. You guys probably notice it when you watch the games and just mentally that you're thinking, yeah, sounds about right. They throw those screen routes to X, to Xavier Worthy. Now with Hollywood Brown back, he's another one that they're doing screen behind the line of scrimmage, little drag routes right at the line of scrimmage. They even do screens to Kelsey. They throw a lot of stuff behind the line. We've talked about what Fangio is going to run here, right? Fangio is a 70% zone, pressure with 4, in cover 4 and in cover 6 a lot, which means that your backfield's dropping back. Their eyes everything's in front of them. They don't have their eyes on a single man, so they recognize when something happens behind the line of scrimmage, and they're able to attack to it. Number one defense in terms of yards per play against them for passes behind the line of scrimmage is the Philadelphia Eagles. They give up just over 4 yards per play on passes at or behind the line of scrimmage. So that's going to be an absolute chess piece right there as to who breaks through. And then do the Chiefs break form and character some and try some passes downfield off of what they're doing behind the line of scrimmage? Do they lull the Eagles into being a little bit too aggressive, coming, they're in a zone, they're in a cover 6, they're in a cover 4, but the secondary is so used to these passes coming at the line of scrimmage that they cheat up a little bit. We have rookies in this back end. We have very young, as good as this Eagles defense is, we have rookies in this back end. So do they cheat up a little bit and then get burned over the top? We love this Eagles secondary. I find very few ways in which the Chiefs are going to really break through. So I think you guys know I expect this game to be kind of low scoring. We don't bet totals here, but obviously I've already told you guys if I were to bet one, it would be the under. This is going to be a massive chess piece in this game because Chiefs loving that play so much and Eagles being the number one defense against it, that should give Chiefs bettors pause for sure. Now, let's go back to another one that's a regression to the mean. You guys heard me talk about Buffalo and their 1.4 turnover margin per game a lot before we went into the last one. And I said there's no way it's going to hold. And I told you guys the last 5 years, or the leaders in the NFL, are at 0.7, 0.8, 0.8, 0.7, etc. So quietly, because Buffalo was at a 1.4 turnover margin per game, the Eagles are at a 1.1 turnover margin per game. In the playoffs, they have 10 turnovers for them and only 1 turnover against them. You, in theory, again, should expect regression to the mean. The difference is, if you go back and watch all the game film for the Eagles, they're not getting lucky with turnovers the way Buffalo was. They're forcing these turnovers. Washington game is a great microcosm of that. They forced the ball on the ground. It wasn't like Washington was just dropping the ball on the ground. These were punch outs, these were knockouts, these were hard hits. The Eagles have been doing that all season long. They force quarterbacks into bad throws with their coverage scheme, the way that they disguise different coverages, the way that they show you a cover 6 and then ultimately they're in a cover 4, the way that they show you a cover 2 and then ultimately they're in a cover 6. It's wild, actually. DeJean unlocked an ability for them to be very versatile pre-snap. And with that, they have disguised coverage as good as anyone maybe other than the Baltimore Ravens because of what Kyle Hamilton can do. I mean, you can have him at the line of scrimmage, then he can run like 30 yards backwards. It's crazy. But anyway, this is what I think. I think that the reason the Eagles blow teams out is that turnover margin. If the turnover margin is equal, then that puts this back into a one-possession game. If the Eagles significantly win the turnover margin, they can beat the Chiefs by double digits because they're the better team. If they lose the turnover margin, you could look back and say, well, they won it all year long, and this is, it finally caught up. They lost their turnover margin, and this is why it got to them. If you guys remember correctly, in Super Bowl 57, you had the play, a Jalen Hurts fumble in the backfield, Chiefs pick it up, run it in for a touchdown that totally changed that game. It was 14-7 Eagles. Eagles had the ball. They looked like they were driving again, kind of taking control of the game. That fumble changed everything. Chiefs picked it up, ran it in the end zone, tied the game, changed the momentum, and then Chiefs kind of went on from there. I mean, they still got down by 10, but they went on from there and ultimately won the game. So regression, again, that's another one where in theory there should be regression to mean, but I just think this Eagles team forces turnovers in a way that it's not luck. It's very legitimate. It's one of the most legitimate I've seen actually from an NFL team in a long time. All right. Next one. This is a build off of one that we've already talked about a little bit. So the Chiefs have not given up a 100-yard rusher in the playoffs since 2019. They've not given up a 100-yard rusher this season other than week 1, and it was Lamar Jackson. It was not to a running back. Steve Spags has coached in 24 playoff games with the Giants and with the Chiefs. He has given up a 100-yard rusher one time in 24. So this isn't a fluke. This is not a fluke. These defenses do not give up 100-yard rushers. I do not like Saquon in this game. I love Jalen in this game. You go back to week 1, what did they do? They took away Derrick Henry, and Lamar had over 100 yards rushing. They are going to take away Saquon, and they're going to say, all right, Jalen, you beat us with your legs and you beat us with your arm. Now, Jalen may do it because Jalen almost did it 2 years ago. But that is what the Chiefs are going to do. I love Jalen overs in this game. I do not like Saquon overs in this game. And then this is my last one. And this is ultimately what kind of tipped the scales and why I decided to go the way that I'm going to go. Headed into the postseason, the number 1 tackling team, so least amount of missed tackles, most tackles at essentially getting the ball carrier down at the point of contact, was the Detroit Lions. After their showing against Washington, and then after the 2 postseason games, the number 1 tackling team in the NFL right now is the Kansas City Chiefs. That is a meta of defense that a lot of people don't quite. That is what defense is. Defense is tackling and getting people down. Missed tackles is what leads to explosive plays. It's what leads to extended drives. It's what leads to 3rd and 2s instead of 3rd and 8s. I like the Chiefs and their ability to not give up explosive plays after missed tackles. It's why they're so sound defensively. The second part of this is we talked about how good they are at third down conversions when they're on offense. Philly is slipping in terms of letting third down conversions. A lot of that was because they played Washington multiple times at the end of the season, and Washington's one of the best in third and shorts and fourth and shorts. But the Chiefs get you in third and short, and then they find open guys. So their tackling combined with the fact that I think they're going to be in third and short, and they're going to convert those, is why we're going with the Chiefs. I very much expect this game for Eagles fans to be very frustrating. Sometimes you'll watch a football game, and at the end of the game, you'll think to yourself, man, that one team, like, if they had just done, there's a certain play that they only run 6 times, but every time they run it, the 6 times they do it, like a run off to the left or a read option into a pass into the flat, and every time they did it, they got 10 to 15 yards, but they only did it 6 times. The Chiefs don't beat themselves. They don't overthink it. And other teams tend to do when they get into these situations. So ultimately, I think the Eagles are the better team, but I just think that coaching, big game mentality, not making mistakes, and the fact that they're the number 1 tackling team, and that's really what you need to beat the Eagles. We're going with the Chiefs. So we're laying the 1, and we're upping it to 10 units from our original 5. Everyone, enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. Obviously, we will be back at you with a recap video later this week and a recap video of our season. Really appreciate all the love and support. We've had a really good year. We'll go over some of the numbers in terms of how good of a year we had, but it's been fantastic. Enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. Hopefully you took work off tomorrow like I did. But have a good time.